Everything you need to know about products and services that can improve your life. This is Experts on Call on CL 650.
And welcome back. You're listening to 650 CIL's Experts on Call. This is Talk About Strata, and we have Dan Schmidt from Remdal Painting and Sean Lang from Interprovincial Roofing Consultants. We're talking about preparing your buildings for the winter season and knowing what to prepare for and what we're coming to. But we were talking earlier about the fact that winter we don't paint outside. But Dan, this is a great opportunity to paint inside. And a lot of strata corporations don't realize when they're looking at their hallway finishes and common areas, it might just only be a primer or a colored primer that was put on, and that was the extent of the finish.
Yeah, and most of the time they'll discover that when they first try and wipe down a stain or some spill that's been on that wall and the paint comes off on the rag. And so you're right, either the builder's grade paint or the primer that's been used there and just to make it colored. Needs to protect that wall, and they'll have a variety of surfaces inside, whether it be the hallways. You need to protect some of the doors that might get rusty, or if you've got a common amenity room or a pool area or those kind of things. These are times to take a walk through inside and see, okay, what about in our garbage room? What about some of our parkade areas? What about the common hallways? What should we protect inside as well? And from a painter's perspective, there's lots of painting companies, ours included, who are looking for good work inside when it's rainy outside. And so you'll find pricing are much more attractive. We're fairly aggressive on our pricing to keep our employees busy.
Sounds like a good time to get your rooms painted in your apartment too.
Yeah.
So here we are, October, Sean.
Mm-hmm.
What's a checklist that consumers need to look for?
Well, if the consumer is comfortable with looking at their roof system, and what I mean is if they can feel safe when they're going and looking at their roof, whether it's from a ladder or if it's an apartment building and they can walk out on the roof system and it has high enough walls around the perimeter that they're not at risk of falling off. They can look at their drains. They can look at everything, basically. Just look around and see what you see. If things don't look right, if the sealants look like they're poor and old and green now with algae or separating from the paint that's on the wall, you might want to have somebody more professional come in and look at the roof system. And we're happy to do that. We have a health check program where we come around once or twice a year and we actually look at all the components of the building. We look for rodent damage. We look for, sealant failures, drain plugs, all that sort of thing. So if you're not comfortable, call us. We'll come out and do it. If you are comfortable, go ahead and do it as long as you're safe. When you run into finding situations that you don't know much about, we're happy to help you out.
So you have health check programs. Great idea.
Yep.
We do kind of like a Strata 101 boot camp kind of program too. What are you doing with your bylaws? What are you doing with your meetings, your governance and operations? Ballpark cost, is that a fair question to ask?
It really depends on the building. The smaller buildings are obviously under $1,000 or less or whatever to do it. But if it's a very cut up building, it's got a lot of different roof sections or multiple buildings like a townhouse complex, the cost, I have to look at each one and actually see what kind of work is involved. But it's not very much.
But it's a good indication. Under $1,000 for a smaller building is a heck of a lot less expensive than having a roof overflow disaster and insurance deductible and damages to the building. And the whole point of this is to ensure that you're doing maintenance on your roof so you prolong them as long as you can before you replace them.
Exactly.
I think over the cycle of 25 or 40 years, if you're getting more time out of your roof, even 10 or 15% more, you've easily saved the amount of money that you would be doing on annual inspection and maintenance.
And you know exactly what's going on because it's out of sight, out of mind. Otherwise, unless you've done this work and you've actually spent some time looking at the roof system or had somebody look at the roof system. So you'll have a detailed report that actually talks about what's going on up there.
Well, and we hear everyone when they're buying how much they love the view or the granite countertops. I don't hear anyone saying what a beautiful roof. I haven't heard that in a long time. So
well, and Sean talked about doing a walk around, and really that this is a great season to do that. It's fall, it's beautiful out. Pick a day that's dry and take a walk around and look at the exterior wall surfaces, look at the flashings.
You can use binoculars too. Like it's actually quite good to take a good set of binoculars. You can look at the walls of a building and check the paints and everything, and you can also step back and look at your roof if it's a sloped roof system, maybe from another building or from a balcony. You can see some of the roof. It's not, you won't see everything, but it'll give you an idea. And then if you by doing that, you'll be able to make the phone calls to people that can actually give you their detailed reports.
That's right. And if you're running into those kind of I don't really know what I'm looking at, but it doesn't seem to look right, that's the time to pick up the call, and we'll come out and do a maintenance review on a building as well, or give you a quick insight into what's going on there. And it's time to plan some of that cleaning right?
Right.
Make sure you have do the cleaning in the wet seasons, right? It's perfect timing, rather than the middle of summer when you want to use your balcony.
And in regards to that, please don't pressure wash any roofing.
Yeah, well, I'm not exactly a fan of pressure washing on buildings at the best of time. It tends to drive water where it shouldn't be going
Exactly.
anyhow.
Yeah,
So,
unless you've got a professional doing it, I would recommend don't give your strata people a pressure washer to use.
Exactly. Well, any other thoughts, Dan? Where we, here we are. So pressure washing. We're dealing with sealants, perhaps. Checking sealants between paint materials and surfaces, transition points, windows,
Yeah,
decks.
looking for gaps, looking for cracks in those kind of areas, and then getting the right sealant. So if you're not sure what to do, don't just pick up a tube of sealant and put it on. Actually, get somebody who knows how to replace that sealant properly in that area. Deck surfaces, a good time to look at drains, as you were saying, not just on roofs, but on those open decks and areas where there's other painted surfaces too.
Well, and we're coming to winter. Things will start getting cold, freezing. So if you're in high elevations, you're in parts of the province where you have freezing, or out in the Fraser Valley, Whistler, simple things. Get your taps and faucets on the outside of your buildings. Get them emptied. Get the water turned off on the inside. Hopefully you have shutoffs. If you don't, get them protected for the winter. Get your garden hoses off of your taps and your faucets. Get the water out of all of them. And of course, if you're in a climate where you're likely to freeze and you have resort property, don't turn your heat off when you've gone away for the weekend. It's really horrifying how many claims a year we get from resort properties where vacationers go up to their home and their townhouse, their condo, and then to save money, they turn the heat off when they're gone for the rest of the week. It goes to -30, and then of course when it warms up, the pipes are frozen, the splits are through the building, and it's nothing but problems. So thank you so much for joining us both. That's
Thanks for having me.
big help.
My pleasure.
And I think our listeners can certainly get some value out of preparing themselves for the winter. I'm Tony Giventu, host of Key Pacific's Talk About Strata. This is 650 Sea Isle. If you want to send us a question, it's questions@talkaboutstrata.com.